Right, so a quick look at how to set up a foot switch with Ableton Push. The main reason to do this is that Footswitch can give you control over triggering record and also sustain. And the reason I chose this particular foot switch, as you can see, it's a dual foot switch. This model is the Boss FS-7, and it allows you to connect and assign two different functions in one very compact switch. And so that's what I've done, and that's why it works really well with the Push. In this case, I'm using the Push 3 standalone version, and I've tested this both in standalone and controlling live mode, and the setup etc is the same. To start, you have to go into settings, pedals and CV, and make sure you have pedal and CV1 set to trigger and pedal and CV2 set to sustain. And the two ports for those, you can see the orange and green jacks I've got going out here from from pedal 1 and pedal 2. So trigger and sustain. And I assume you could have two foot switches, but to save space, I have this dual foot switch, and as you can see, I've got the trigger going to A and the sustain going to B. So I'll show you what that means in practice. That's basically all you need to know for the setup. Now I've got Arturia SQ80 plugin here. Sustain. Now if I just do a quick trigger on that note while I'm holding down the B switch, you'll see that it obviously sustains it until I let go. So that works flawlessly. And on the screen here, if you see in the first clip on that track, when I hit the A button, we start recording. And when we hit it again, we stop recording. Now there isn't a start-stop, as in playback start-stop function in the foot switch options for Push. So you've still got to do that from here. Obviously, if you have a MIDI controller of some kind, you can still do that remotely. So this just gives you the ability to trigger, record and stop record. And if I do that again, one thing to note about this behavior, which you can see on screen, so we're starting to record a new clip now. And when we stop record, it's going to carry on playing just like a looper would. Now there is supposed to be a secondary function accessed by a double click. Now I found that in practice, let's just stop that a second. I found that in practice to be very problematic. So what's supposed to happen is you can double click, and instead of just triggering a record, what it's supposed to do is create a new clip which you can then record into. But doing that, I've tried that both in standalone and controlling live mode with the Push, and I've got it working sometimes but not every time, and I haven't quite worked out what the issue is. It could just be user error, that's me. It could be that this particular foot switch doesn't do that function particularly well, you know, that double click, or it could be a bit of a bug. And you'll notice at the moment just for the avoidance of doubt, I don't have this plugged in. There's no power. You actually don't need power for this particular foot switch when it's in momentary mode. In standard polarity and momentary mode, that's what Push works with for those functions. The only downside is the LEDs need power to operate. If that's really important to you, then obviously you can plug it in, and as you'll see, you then get the visual feedback. But obviously, for the sake of not having it plugged in, which to me is a great bonus, I can live without that, and just does the basic functions really well. As I said, annoying that it doesn't have that create a new clip function, or at least not consistently. But I can live without that as well, because the core things I need it for are triggering record on a clip and sustain.